So I'm going to call to order the Tuesday, June 1st, 2020 Planning Commission meeting. Nick, do you want me to read this in to the minutes?
I don't think that's actually necessary any longer.
Okay. So we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. And how about Joe? Would you do the Pledge of Allegiance for us?
Sure. Thanks, Annette.
You're welcome.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So second on the agenda is audience comments. Is there any topics on tonight's agenda or not on tonight's agenda that anybody wants to talk about or have questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to number 3, the approval of the minutes from February of 2021 and April of 2021.
I move that we accept the minutes as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, this is going pretty smooth. Number 4, business items. A, presentation of McCormick Woods Village sub-area plan.
Go ahead, Carrie, with any
Okay.
comments you want to say first, please.
Tonight we have Eric Campbell, who is the CEO of Main Street Property Group LLC, and he is, along with his partners, are the proponents of McCormick Village, which is something that Nick and I and Eric have been, and Josie, our intern here down below, you see her, I think you've met her before. We've all been working on the first draft of a sub-area plan for that area within McCormick, the larger McCormick Woods area, to bring forward to you hopefully later on this year. And Eric did a community meeting not very long ago where he spoke with a lot of the people from McCormick Woods about some of the ideas that he and his partners have for putting in the McCormick Village Urban Neighborhood Center, which will have some combined features for both commercial and residential amenities, parks and trails and other things to make this kind of a self-contained community center. And we would like to have Eric also give this presentation to you. It's been a little bit updated. He included notes in what we sent to you in your packet last week so that you would have some additional detail about the design and the connections and the community feel that they're trying to create here. And then we'd also like, as a follow-up after Eric's presentation, we wanted to give you the results of a community survey that we've had online for the last month, just as a follow-up and kind of to introduce you to what the people in the community are thinking about what's going on here. And then we will have some more contact with the community in future, some more outreach to go on with that, and to try to bring the community's ideas in here and to do some additional education as well. So all of this is kind of a first step. We want to let you know what Eric and his partners are considering, what we are working with as staff to bring forward to you in the next few months for sub-area planning in this area, and then to just kind of let you know how the people in the community are thinking so far in reaction to what they've been presented with. And this is just kind of a little bit of a all-in-one thing presentation for you just as an introduction. And there'll be plenty of time for you to ask Eric and Nick and I and Josie questions and answers at the end of this. So Eric, if you want to go ahead, I've made it possible for you to share your screen.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
And one other comment is that, or before as I go to share the screen here, hold on, always gotta make sure I do this right. Hold on here. Let's see here. Share screen. Click. See if I can do this. And guys, let me know if you see that. Okay. We're on the first. Can you see the first slide?
Not yet.
Oh, not yet. Nope. Okay. It's telling me it should be able to, but hold on a second here. Sorry about this. We'll try one more time. Share screen. Share. Okay. Got it now?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. One comment to everybody. As we go through this, please interrupt me because this is really really, as you all know, the whole, between what Nick and his team has done and what Carrie's work has done, and with creating the R3 zone has really been what's allowed us to even come forth with a creative site plan that we have. And so this has been an iterative process. The good news is I lived in the city of Kirkland. My next door neighbor was a gentleman named Eric Shields. He was the planning director for the city of Kirkland. And he put forth and was kind of one of the gentlemen that was really strong in trying to create design guidelines for pedestrian-oriented business districts. And I just have this here of his. So you'll see a lot of, sometimes I might geek out a little bit too much when it comes to community planning. I've just been very fortunate to be around some really bright people. And I'll tell you, you're very fortunate to have such good staff people, because this R3 zoning code, this is, quote, the missing middle that you hear now everyone in the whole nation talking about. Well, the great news is the city of Port Orchard actually has it. And so let me kind of walk you through what we are trying to share here. One other quick thing, Main Street Property Group. Also, we do a lot of mixed use developments. And if you ever go to our website, you'll see all the stuff we've done in more urban areas. One of the great things we're very fortunate of, we were one of the lead developers in downtown Bothel's revitalization. But the reality with Bothell, the gem of Bothell is McMenamin's. They took the old elementary school, Anderson School, and they have just created, it is a mecca. Now, I'm not saying we can recreate that, a lot more people down there, but you'll see there's a lot of, as I go through this, you'll see this is really from experiences of walking, observing, and of course, a lot of reading in detail, but you'll see how the McMenamin experience is throughout this project. Okay, so here we go through. So our whole goal, as you guys have seen, as you read through the notes beforehand, is trying to create a pedestrian village front and center. As you know, this is, I'm showing you what you guys know all very well. McCormick Village Park is really saying that, for us, it's having that regional park abutting to it. It's how can we embrace it? And if we do a really good job, I think what's great is that this can be part of an experience where not only do people stay within the city of Port Orchard, come visit McCormick Village Park, it's a park by itself, but the commercial district that we'll be doing, it'll be a place where people say, rarely can you go have a great pedestrian experience. And our goal is to try to have that be one. And so it's synergistic with the park. Now, this is when we first obtained the project. This was originally a commercial zone on the corner, which I'm going to, if I can draw this, we'll see how good a job I can do sharing this. You guys can see the roundabout right here. Can you see that? So most traditional commercial projects, as you guys know, you drive all around, commercial right there front and center, and what we're doing is somewhat similar to what Gig Harbor is when we do our roundabout, and I'll show it to you. And then the other thing you'll see is, and you can see even within Port Orchard, most garden apartments have a lot more parking lots that are apart. And so it's not one that invites people to go in through the community. It's really kind of, you have these separate little block areas, and it keeps, it's just not inviting. So that is how this old site plan, this was a traditional site plan. This was shown just to say, hey, given the current zoning code back in 2016, this is what would have been, potentially pursued. Now, here we are today, and this is under the benefit of the R3 zoning code. What we're going to show you is that this is how we're able to generate a more pedestrian experience. So we have the roundabout down here, which is being put in. And one thing that I'll show it to you more later, but even you can see is like this area, the trees, we keep those trees up, not dissimilar to how you saw at Gig Harbor when you go up to the Target and all that, you hear a lot of retailers complain, they'll say, well, they can't see us from the street. That's bad. Well, the reality is, if we can create a great experience that brings people to the community, all they have to do is find about one time, and there'll be a lot more repeat because it's someplace they want to go to other than just go pick up a necessary service or a good. On some of the unique components here, I'll talk about in greater details, go through each slide, is we'll be using a lot more alleys. So you have a more of an uninterrupted walking, sidewalk experience. We'll be using pocket parks in our project to create, again, this is one thing we've done throughout the years, trying to have linkages for pedestrians. And then we'll be introducing some slowing areas for what we call warn-offs, both in residential and commercial. And we'll be using LiveWorks just surrounding that kind of the commercial area to try to activate and let everyone know what we have. Okay, really quick, I'm gonna be quick, and please stop me if I go through anything too quick. Where we have an opportunity, you're going to see some places where it looks like it's an alley. We'll actually be using a warn-off. And this was a project that we did in the city of Bothell, won some national awards. And this here is just an 18-foot wide pavement, just using concrete instead of asphalt. And what it did, it really slowed down the traffic, and people just really enjoy having their homes on that type of street. And so even when we have an alley concept, given how we're going to be using ADUs, we'll be seeing something more like this. On the picture next to this is just, I just use this as an example. This is not necessarily the architecture that we're proposing, but this is just to show you a 3-story LiveWorks, more of a standalone building, but just how, and even in the more urban areas, this has worked very well, where you have the ability of this shop down below can either flex out as a living unit or as a storefront. It's great to have the flexibility. And it's one of those things that what we have found in our past, or even in the present, whenever you have the opportunity to have a building that has flexibility to adapt to the marketplace, you'll have that building be full. So for me, economically, being selfish is good, but we also find it to be a lot more, it gives the opportunity for, let's say, more independent small businesses to get into areas where they typically are not able to. And it's worked really well for us. And just to let you know, kind of the first city that really embraced this in our whole Puget Sound region was the city of Redmond. They were the first ones that said, hey, we got to start doing more LiveWorks in residential areas. And that's blossomed quite a bit. This here is just kind of a cross section of a proposed road. Just a simple, this here is a simple, this is really a 2-way road. Just this person here just decided to park, whichever way they want to. What I do show you here, what you see on this, where I just put on the screen here, that is what you will hear is kind of a bioswale or a, one of these vegetated rain gardens that where appropriate, we'll be incorporating that. It gives us a lot more ability to have multi-purpose of, instead of just having it just grass and street trees, when we have the ability to have dual functioning, it works, not only does it provide a better street scene, but also helps us for the environmental and better water quality, and also lessen the storm drainage requirements. Now here, I just use this as an example. This is not a project that we did. This is just a good looking picture of a project my architects did. And this is just to show you, even in a, like what we're proposing, it's not that large a park, but with a specimen tree and a little bit of play equipment, you can create a great spot just for, and it's, I didn't take a photo for us, but we were looking at one of my older neighborhoods in downtown Kirkland, and something just like this, the last 3 times we visited, it's full of kids. So it's an opportunity for kids and parents to be close to their home, and just walking through, just to have a place of rest and or play. And it's, again, it's created a great pedestrian experience. Okay, so this is the commercial village area. So this is, and so here are some of the things that we're doing design-wise that I'll kind of walk you through that what we're proposing. You'll be seeing one thing we're really, instead of having all the buildings attached, we're doing what I consider, oh, sorry about that, more, just shut that off, sorry. More three-sided and four-sided architecture. One thing we've learned in the past on commercial areas, if we can separate these buildings here and actually put the waste areas in between the buildings and just hide them with fencing, looks much better than a traditional alley. When you have just traditional alleys for commercial areas, they just tend to overspill and so on. This commercial warn-off, I'll go about it and we can talk more about it as we go through. And then here's the plaza area here. These are just key components throughout the project. One thing, this is from a retail perspective. You'll see we don't have that much parking on the commercial warn-off area. And the reason for that is there's some, so if someone's driving through, they can see it. But really what we have found in the past, why you want a little bit of parking from the storefronts is so people can drive by to even see if the store is open, right? It's kind of just that drive through and it gives you that opportunity to check. But the key component is having enough parking in a parking lot that's easy to get to the spots, but we still do have plenty of on-street parking around the whole proposal. Okay, so this is downtown Kirkland. This is Park Lane. This was rebuilt in 2017. Seems not too long ago. It used to have gorgeous big trees, but when they had to redo the whole street, those went down and replanted. We're not saying all the components that you see in this picture is what we're proposing. Like some of the bollards here is way overemphasized. I think what happened was Kirkland was the first one to do it. And then now as people have adopted it, they have found out it's just not as big of a necessity. Through the use of street trees and park benches, you can do other things to provide protection where necessary. But the thing that you see here by just this picture, here's just, two individuals walking down the street, no worries, right? Because the street is designed by just being creative to be a pedestrian street that allows cars versus the opposite, having cars dominate. And it's just a real subtlety, but that's one of the things that creates a great experience. The one thing you'll see in our proposal is that, the plazas that we have, even though you'll see, park benches and, tables, it's not only, unless, it's right next to a restaurant, but when they're scattered, it's dual use. Passerbyers and or partisans of the shop owners. So again, having dual purposes. We just find, because what we want to create that place is a great experience that brings more people to it, and it creates more buzz and has more longevity for the community. This is a project here in downtown Kenmore. We were also the lead developer on this one. This one building, though, you see, was actually built by the city of Kenmore. They took all the proceeds of the sale of properties that we purchased, and this was kind of their way of giving back to the community. So this was a large plaza area, and then this is a dual functioning. It actually has a coffee shop in the back, and it's all community space up front. But the purpose I show this is just, how important, having plazas, as we all know now with COVID, having these buildings that open up to public spaces, that's what's thriving. If you really, our belief is there's no going back. If you don't have that open space and combined with your, especially your community spaces, be it indoor, outdoor, or restaurants, you're not going to be a successful restaurant. Again, this is just to show, we are using Barbara Swift, our landscape architect. So we're very fortunate. She's done a lot of great work throughout the region. So we're going a little bit more detailed than one would usually expect, but you see those green dots, those are landmark trees that we'll be doing transplanting with and or bringing them in. This will be, again, trying to kind of like I use the analogy of the Costco shopping experience. We're trying to find little treasures throughout so people want to meander. And again, here is the vehicular access. That's the commercial Warnoff. You can see with these pictures here, I'll show you as we go through it. This is just an example. Again, more foresight of architecture, trying to have more standalone buildings, not have it look like a strip mall. I'm not saying it's good or bad. There's a lot of reasons to have those, buildings that are all attached. But in this case, we're trying to create more standalone, so have those little nooks and crannies that will create more of a that experience that I spoke about previously with McMenamin's. Just another example of a project that Barbara did, where you just really are planning for that indoor going to the outdoor. And by having someone like Barbara on our team, being thoughtful, if there's a blank wall, using the proper landscaping materials so we can have ivy actually growing, not on the building, but on, you can see that wire mesh fence behind. And being very purposeful with the design. And we're fortunate we have such a beautiful area. That's the reason why we have that picture down lower, just of the great trail system. And then on this gathering, entry and transition zones, I share this just as repeat how important it is to have these plaza areas that we're planning for. And these are some pictures that this is we're very fortunate, even though it's interesting, even in the city of Kirkland, one of our newer projects, this is not mine, this is a larger developer, but this was on a rainy day, you can see how many people, they had a little gas fireplace. I'm not saying, I don't know if we can get away with that or not, but that's just how people gather up. A little sunnier day, some area, just using nicer furniture. Here's Winslow. There's all different ways, but trying to create places for people just to sit down as they create the experience. And this is what I was talking about, some of the more creative aspects of just using materials that can be dual functioning. Not only do they serve as a way to, let's say, potentially, direct pedestrians and or stop traffic, but they serve as places to sit. Now, I show you this one last picture. So if you recall when I spoke to you about Kenmore, here they had this large open plaza area. And this is how it looked before COVID. Well, the restaurants were they just didn't, these restaurants just didn't have enough outdoor space, even though they had some. They petitioned the city of Kenmore. Now this is a little, not necessarily aesthetically, the best, but, just because they were next to that open space, they were able to put up some temporary shelter, and this just filled up as allowed the restaurant to be more successful. So I just use that as a real-time example of how important that whole plaza and outdoor space is. Okay, so I think here I'll stop my share, unless we want to take questions and want me to reference the slides right now.
I have a question about the pathway that's going to go through that cars can go on, but are also for pedestrians.
Yep. Yeah. Why we say that, Trish, is that, let me show you this. You still have sidewalks, so it's not, so I guess there's two of them for you. Let me show you two here. Let me roll up. Okay. So here's the commercial one we're talking about. Where we had the other picture has the two ladies walking right here. You still have plenty of place for the sidewalk here, but because you're encouraging by slowing down the traffic, pedestrians naturally wander out because the traffic is so slow. And the more you do it, you see people crossing the street all the time, and it just slows down traffic where people literally are driving down that road at 5 miles per hour. So that's just a design technique. Now here, show you here. There's that picture again. I was just drawing up there. Like, so again, you can see quite a bit of sidewalk over here.
Hey, Eric,
Yes, sir.
as a follow-up on that, how are business services handled on those type of roads?
Right.
Is there a back alley to these sides of the businesses, or?
Those there, you saw it on Park Lane in Kirkland. They had an old alley for some of them, but the other ones are where they don't have an alley. So like, for example, is that if you have services where the garbage truck will come right down that Warnoff that we saw, stop, go grab the garbage dumpster, and the people have to wait 3 minutes behind them as he pulls it in and dumps it and then moves on. So does that, Mark, does that answer your question?
Yeah, would that hold true for example, food service delivery trucks and that type
Well,
of
see
thing?
here, the food service delivery trucks, and this is what we did here, like, this is where there is like this parking lot element. Some of them have an alley. But in this case, we have the parking lot here, and we have all that street frontage here and here to give them so they can pull off and actually have dedicated parking areas. So that's how we go about doing that.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know if you mind if I keep on going on a couple things.
No,
You mentioned
Please,
some,
please.
in the residential areas, you mentioned some 18-foot streets.
Yeah, this, you can actually see it better here. It's not the streets. It's, see how you got the alleys here?
Mhm.
So what we're saying is, instead of having an alley be a traditional just pavement kind of outside out of line, you're going to see it be, oh, sorry about this here. Look more like this here. See how just by using concrete? And this here is front-loaded ones. That's not what we're proposing, but we're proposing we'll have ADUs off the back, right? But instead of having where it looks like an alley per se, through landscaping and using bare materials, this is how we can dress it up to make it look more like a Warnoff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm concerned a little bit. Are these homes that you're talking about putting in here, are we sprinklering these things to get away from the street requirements, or how is that being handled?
Yeah, I'll
For
show you
fire.
here. Yeah, no, on those issues where we would have it, but you see how, here's the main road here. You have plenty of access, right? This is your main fire truck. So they meet all the 150-foot access requirements.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. And this is, Mark, one comment. Typically on a sub area plan, we're probably a little bit, like I'm talking about, is a little bit more detailed than maybe typical sub area plans, but just given how much, we're so fortunate to have so much detail part of the R3 code, so we were able to kind of get into the nitty gritty a little earlier.
One final one from me. So
Yes.
I love what you're showing. It's awesome looking. Who's responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of the landscapes, the potted plants, all the rest of that
Yeah.
type of stuff? Is that?
Yeah, so what you have when you do a commercial area like this, it's in essence, we own the property, right? But so it's no different. So it's a private, association, and this is what you would be called. And then we do what is your monthly assessments to the tenants. That will be part of it. So it's just like what you would call like part triple nets, right? And the reality that what we're finding, we're not saying this is any U village by any stretch, but the maintenance requirements, even the trash pickup, if there's a thriving restaurant industry, let's say we're lucky, and this is a big if, right? Which is going to take a lot of work to attract the right tenants and the right partners. But if you get the right people, you need to have that daily trash pickup where it's all about maintain that great experience. You can't let it slide. And that's just, so it costs you a couple extra $1,000 a month, but the reality is that's an investment you make to bring the people to your community.
Sure. Sure, that makes sense. I was just looking at potential exposure and additional costs for the city
Right.
of handling that on their own, and that's a little scary.
No, this is not a city expense.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Eric, I'll just comment that I think it's exciting and forward-thinking, and it seems like it'll serve the residents of McCormick well. So can't wait to see more.
Well, thank you. Yeah, if we're lucky enough, we'll get a lot of people throughout the whole Port Orchard community coming here. That's our goal.
Is there any other questions?
No, I
Do you
think
have
it's
any-
promising.
Sorry, I was gonna say, do you have any businesses that have expressed interest? Do you think it is a possibility that we could actually get a McMenamins in Port Orchard of all places? Like,
I would highly doubt we could capture McMenamins. I mean, we will ask just because we'd be stupid not to ask, right? But my hunch is we have not yet started in prospecting yet because we're not through the sub-area plan, right? This is just a vision. Once we get approval, then we can start the huge marketing, aspect out there to them. And so that's and what I would plan to do, one of the things that you see so often is that we would be as soon as we got approval, we'd be putting the streets in surrounding and start grading it so we could actually help the tenants even see the vision for the community. Even though with all the great graphics we'll use, by pushing dirt, that itself makes a big difference in showing people that it's actually going to be there. But hey, if you guys know anybody, please send them my way. I tell you, we'll start once we can get through the sub area plan, we'll start a very active marketing program.
Any other questions for Eric? How about for Nick or Carrie? All right, well, thank you. That was
Okay.
great.
I'll stop to share and we'll listen to Josie's tell us all about her survey.
Let me go ahead and give an introduction to that survey. Josie, how long did we have the online survey up? Was it about 3.5 weeks?
3.5 weeks, yeah.
3.5 weeks, yeah, okay. And this just closed yesterday, and Josie tabulated all the results today and put this together. I think we had about 10 additional responses over the weekend, so it's only about 10 responses different from what was in your packet. So I'm going to go ahead and share the final results on my screen and just walk through the final with you. So it's very little different from what went out to you, but I just want you to see the very final results. Let me go ahead and share that screen with you. Okay, can everyone see that? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So the first question, we wanted to get basically an idea of what people wanted to see in terms of commercial development in the urban village center. And so we asked a number of questions about the different types of commercial development and the types of businesses and the scale of businesses that they wanted to see in the center. So 1A was the McCormick Urban Village Center provides opportunities to shop, dine, meet, and gather, several different types of functions, in other words. So not just shopping, but a multi-purpose center. And so it seems that most people did agree with that assessment. About 60% of the people, or over 70%, felt that it was important or very important to have a multifunctional commercial area. In B, we had about 42 or over 60% of the people feeling that it was important or very important that the village have an assortment of businesses. that we have varying types of businesses in that center, which I think is important as well. That it wouldn't be just one type of thing like shopping or anything like that. We would like to see a variety of things go into that area. We were interested in letting people know that it's intended that the commercial portion of the village be small scale, meaning an area that contains 10 to 20 commercial storefronts and approximately 20,000 square feet total. And as we put here for reference, typically a grocery store of the average size is about 40,000 square feet. Typical super center like a super Walmart is 100,000 square feet or more. And again, we had a majority of people saying that, yes, it was very important to them that the commercial portion of the village was on a small scale. And we had a lot of people. We had about 80% of the people saying it was important or very important to them that the urban village be connected to the surrounding and existing residential areas by trails, sidewalks, and bike lanes. So that pedestrian and bicycle connectivity does seem to be something that the community feels is very important, that we tie that into the amenities they already have and creates more, so that this is not a car-oriented community.
And if I could add to that, the city actually budgeted for 2022 money to do a design for multimodal improvements along Old Clifton Road from the entrance to of McCormick Woods over to this area. And so in terms of putting bike lanes and sidewalks and pedestrian crossings across Old Clifton Road, both to get people from McCormick Woods to the park, but also along Old Clifton, that is a project that is currently budgeted. And when we allowed for free-form answers at the end, you'll see a lot of people mentioned, wanting to have these improvements in place before we develop this area. We need to be able to walk safely throughout the neighborhood. And so that is currently part of the plan, and it's actually moving forward a little ahead of this plan as a separate project.
And I'm not sure how many people from the community know that, but they will be happy if they don't already know that. So moving on, it was very important. 80% of the people felt that it was very important that the McCormick Urban Village fit into its natural surroundings. And this ties into when we get further down into the survey, how the community response feels about trees and the preservation of trees and the reestablishment of the tree canopy from the development. And as you can see here, you have an overwhelming response. I mean, it's over 90% of people feeling that it's important or very important that the natural surroundings and the natural feel of the urban village be preserved and protected. Green building techniques and materials. Again, over 60% feeling that this is important or very important, that this be done sustainably and in an environmentally sensitive way. So, this is not something that we're calling out or mandating at this point. Again, this is a community preference, but this is important to know at this point that this is what the community hopes to see in the development and construction of the project. Uh-oh. Ooh. Oh, wow. I'm not sure what just happened there. Does the screen look blurry to you?
No.
Okay.
Nope, looks fine.
Interesting. It looks a little blurry to me. That's strange. Okay. The McCormick Urban Village includes small plazas, outdoor gathering spaces, and opportunities for outdoor dining. So in other words, how important is it to you not just to have indoor retail, indoor shopping, bars and restaurants with indoor space, but as this is what Eric was saying before, that it's become very important over the last year that there be also outdoor gathering spaces, places for people to meet and greet and gather and eat and interact outdoors. And as we thought might be the case, we have an overwhelming response saying that that is really important to people. They really want to see the outdoors be part of this development. So we were interested to see that that was really important to a lot of people. Pedestrian oriented. This is also important. This ties in, I think, to people want to see that the village be tied into existing pedestrian and bike lanes, paths and trails, recreation areas, and existing residential development. So again, tying into the fact that people don't necessarily want to see this being an auto dominated community. This was something that again, we see as a theme throughout the responses here. The McCormick Urban Village is built with streetscape amenities as pedestrian scale lighting, benches, landscaping, and street trees. They want this to be a nice community. They want to see these amenities here, these visual attractive amenities. They want to feel that this is a community that that you want to walk through, you want to spend time in, that it's, you know, that you have a bench to sit down on, that there's landscaping that's attractive, that it's a place you want to stroll and spend time. And I think this ties in with a lot of people feeling, again, that they really want to see the natural environment and the trees preserved in this area. So this is very important to a lot of people. We have about 85% response here saying that. Then we asked people to talk about housing. And this is one where I think we're going to be trying to reach out to the community again to get some more, maybe some more specific feedback so we can understand better what people's concerns are. Because as you can see here, it wasn't like our questions about what do you want to see in the village for commercial. We asked about, you know, is it important to you that there's a wide variety of housing options in the urban village, such as apartments, single family homes, townhomes, etc. So we had quite a spread here. We actually had a lot of people saying it was really not important at all that there be a wide variety of housing options. We had about 37% say that was not important to them. And then we had kind of a range of people who said, yeah, it kind of is, and it is important, and everywhere in between. So we're not quite sure what that means. We think that that means that we need to kind of tease people out a little bit more and say, what does that mean to you? You know, what are your concerns? What do you think is going in here in terms of housing? What do you want to see? If a certain type of housing goes in, what would your concerns be about that? So we think we have some more outreach to do, maybe a little bit more education about types of housing that are allowed in the zone, more information from Eric and his group about what they propose. We just think we need to have a little bit more understanding of the community responses here. And this,
Carrie, can I add one thing real quick if you don't mind?
yeah, absolutely.
So what's really interesting is, you know, the great graphics in the R3, you know, code itself that, you know, you guys did, you know, it's what we have found through all these jurisdictions, even way long ago, when we would do anything, quote, that's perceived to be more affordable than the existing neighborhood, a lot of times you have a lot of parts of the community goes, well, why do I care? You know, how does it impact my property value? And that's always one thing we will always have is you have, you know, as we have, you know, seen the people change until they think about, well, where do my kids live? Or where does my, you know, parents get a chance to move to and so on. So that's, I think the great news, we haven't had any true negative feedback so far to this point, but to your point, when you talk about teasing it out, it's one of those things, it's always interesting when you're trying to say, you know, the whole concept behind having a wide variety of different densities and, you know, opportunities to have people move into your community. Many times we found in, you know, areas where it's where there's, you know, nicer housing, if they're not vehemently opposed, I think to your point, try and tease out what people would like to see would be helpful. But many times we just find out, well, we just want more of the same.
Mhm.
So doesn't mean that's this group, but that's, you know, for 25 years of doing this, it's amazing how much these stats don't change.
I think some of what I meant by that was in a few of the free form responses, it was clear, I think, that for at least for a few people, there was some misunderstanding about what a wide variety of housing options meant, because there were a couple of people who said things like, I don't want homelessness, you know, and things like that. And I don't know if that meant they thought that there would be a homeless shelter or there would be supportive housing or micro units or something like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, there needed maybe to be, I'm sure that there were not a lot of people going directly to the R3 portion of the code to look and see what was possible. They were looking at your presentation.
Yeah.
They were looking at the survey, and they were perhaps listening to their friends and neighbors, and, you know, concerns and insecurities were coming out, and that I think, you know, those specific concerns, I think we need to do a little bit more outreach on.
Okay, sounds good.
So, yeah.
And one thing, you know, Carrie, as we work together with you guys, if you think at some point, I never, you know, this is, you know, again, excuse me for if I'm interrupting, and Nick, you know, tell me if I'm out of line, but if you want, like, for example, say, hey, put forth on a website some of the, you know, the concepts we're talking about, if that's helps on the education, we'd be more than willing to, you know, work with you on that. So, you know, so I guess, you know, you just let us know what you would like us to do on the outreach side. And it's, you know, so we're very open to the, you know, what forms of communication you think would work.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. And I think that this may just require an additional exercise, like a visual preference survey, where you kind of show pictures of what things look like and is this acceptable or not,
Oh,
without
okay.
telling them what the configuration is in terms of units. And I think
Okay.
most of the low scale residential can be mitigated through landscaping or other
Right.
considerations. So we're just probably going to do a real small amount of additional outreach there to make sure
Okay.
that we're getting at the heart of this issue.
Okay, thank you.
Did anyone have any questions so far about the questions that I've gone through? Okay. To continue on again, you know, the concern about the housing in the McCormick Urban Village Center is available to a wide variety of income levels. You know, this kind of goes back to the previous question. A lot of people, that's about, you know, about 37% are not concerned that housing be available to a wide variety of income levels. So again, that's something that I think, again, we need to kind of understand, what do people mean by that? You know, as Eric was saying, people have a kind of an initial reaction to that. Excuse me. But then, you know, they think about that. Do I want my kids to be able to live in this town where they grew up? Do we want families to be able to buy homes? You know, things like that. What is affordable housing anymore? That kind of thing. And so we just need to understand a little bit better what the community's concerns are. And it's not something that we probably can get to by just a couple of questions on a survey. So we have a little more work to do here. The McCormick Urban Village Center provides sidewalks and trail connections within the center, connecting to existing neighborhoods and recreational opportunities. And we get back to people saying, yes, this is really important to us. We do want this. We have, again, about 80%, over 80% of people saying, yep, we really want these things. We've heard this several times now in various different forms within our survey. On a scale of 1 to 5, how important are the following to you concerning public space, natural areas, and parks? Wetlands and streams and their buffers are protected. This is probably about the highest areas that we've had. People really want to be sure that their critical areas, their wetlands and streams, their buffers, their natural areas, and their trees are protected. We have about 80%, 86% saying that yes, they want those features protected, their wetlands and streams. They want their trees, existing trees, protected where possible. They want this neighborhood to plan to ensure long-term tree canopy creation, as well as preservation of existing trees. So where trees are taken out, they want to be sure that trees are put back in. They also want to see small-scale pocket parks to supplement the amenities and recreational opportunities provided in the neighboring McCormick Village Park. So Eric showed you some of those, the small pocket parks that line the roads and the neighborhoods within the McCormick Village plan. As he showed you, those are just small amenities for the residents within there. They're not meant to serve people outside of the village, but they provide green space, small areas of recreation, and visual relief throughout that development. Additional access and amenities are provided for McCormick Village Park. And these would include the creation of western entrances to the park, to McCormick Village Park from Campus Parkway. And do people think that that's really important? And we got over 60% saying yes, they would like to see additional access and amenities for the park and to be able to access the park from Campus Parkway.
And this question on the survey, we did include a graphic from the master plan for McCormick Village Park. So in 2010, when that park plan was developed, there was 3 phases of development, and we have completed phases 1 and 2. The 3rd phase is an entrance off of Campus Parkway. And so we were just sort of checking in with the public, making sure that there's still broad support for the improvements that were shown there, and that will likely go forward as a city project in the not so distant future.
And then we asked people, so if we have this new business district established with the urban village, and it contains ground floor shop fronts, street parking, and pedestrian connections, how likely would you be to walk or bike to local shopping opportunities? And this would be as opposed to getting in your car and driving. And we had over 50% saying they would. They'd be very important they'd be very likely to be able to do it. So that's pretty cool. Again, this kind of highlights how important people who responded to the survey feel that it is to, again, have these pedestrian and bicycle connections and trail connections throughout this area. Which of the following uses should be allowed in the McCormick Urban Village Center? We got top results in order were restaurants, coffee shops, and bars, about 78%, which is great because that kind of ties into what Eric's trying to do here with create both indoor and outdoor amenities, restaurants that have indoor space, outdoor space, same thing for coffee shops and bars. We have the gathering spaces, both inside and outside. So we have that merging of indoor, outdoor, and we're not, just trying to bring everything into one consistent living space for the people and not make it so one thing or the other, the Wooners and all of the street furniture and other really cool amenities like that he was just showing you in his presentation. So all of these would lend themselves to that type of development really nicely. Another thing that people wanted to see was the small scale grocery stores and then general retail establishments. So all of those would fit very nicely into the scale and design of what is being proposed. Concerns that people have about the development of the center. Transportation. This was consistently called out. The current condition and the physical infrastructure of Old Clifton Road not being suitable for the existing conditions and the traffic right there right now. And Nick, do you want to address any of what's going to be done out there with improvements to Old Clifton?
Well, I can share that there are roundabouts planned at both Campus Parkway, McCormick Woods Drive, and Anderson Hill Road. And so that will become a roundabout corridor. It's still going to be a 2-lane road. We won't be putting in traffic signals, but the crosswalks with refuge islands at the roundabouts will provide for pedestrian crossing across Old Clifton. There will also be bike lanes and pedestrian access along Old Clifton. It's likely to be focused on one side of the road, probably the north side of the road, with connections to that north side of the road with either a grade separated pathway or a wide sidewalk where it goes along the frontage of McCormick Village Park, because there's some critical areas and wetlands in there, so we don't have a whole lot of room to work with. But the intent is to make Old Clifton Road a complete street and to tie through even all the way to the future high school site, which the school district does own property at Figley in Old Clifton. And they had talked about doing another elementary school or middle school and a high school on their site. So the site plan that Eric showed, the concept plan had, it has an east-west roadway that goes parallel to Old Clifton. And we really see, in terms of east-west pedestrian and bicycle traffic, most of the vehicles and bicyclists going off of Old Clifton and through the neighborhood rather than trying to stay on the busier road. Old Clifton is the slopes. It's kind of in a little bit of a valley between Campus Parkway and Figley Road, and cars tend to travel pretty fast. So that's sort of the plan for that corridor. And we actually hired an additional civil engineer who started about a week and a half ago, and he has a transportation design background. So we're actually working on designing that in-house. And then we're going to pursue grant funding. Though the roundabouts themselves are actually being built by McCormick Communities pursuant to the development agreement they entered into with the city. So 2 out of the 3 roundabouts are being built by the developer, and we're sort of filling in the gaps in between with the city project to do the multimodal design.
And this might be something too, Nick and Eric, that it might not be bad to have this information kind of summarized and put on a website for the project on the city's website as well, just to give people some idea of transportation improvements that are coming in their area to support not just this project, but just the general level of development and traffic in their neighborhood already.
No, that's a great idea. Well, especially since we've already started the roundabout, we should probably get something maybe a little bit more colored up to show everybody how it's going to look. So that's a good point, Carrie.
Okay.
I'll get on that.
People were also concerned about the availability of parking. As Eric has shown on his site plan, there will be quite a bit of parking available with the site. I think maybe we just need to highlight that for people a little bit, where parking will be. I think we were also talking about golf carts and golf cart parking as something that could be included in this design. And that may be something that could be really exciting for a lot of people if we include that, and they could drive their golf carts here and then actually kind of, find a golf cart corral and walk or bike from there. I'm not sure if that's finalized in the plan or anything, but I know that's an idea that's been kicked around, is to make this a golf cart friendly development.
Yeah, and for everyone's information, McCormick Woods is already a golf cart zone where you are allowed to drive your golf cart on the street within the boundaries of McCormick Woods. We are going to extend that to McCormick West, which is, I think it's going to be called McCormick Trails, which they are clearing that area right now, which is to the west of the driving range and south of the Christ the Rock Church on Old Clifton Road. So on the south side of Old Clifton, you'll be able to drive a golf cart anywhere within that neighborhood. We don't want golf carts going out onto Old Clifton Road. So the thought was, if there's enough users, we could potentially create some golf cart parking near Old Clifton Road to where people could park their golf cart and then walk a half a block to the commercial area to go get dinner or go out for the evening.
Again, moving on, conservation of trees and wildlife, natural habitat protection. People are concerned about the displacement of the native wildlife, the loss of natural land and habitat. Schools, people are quite reasonably concerned about school overcrowding, the lack of the failure to fund a school in the area being built there. School has property in the area, have never managed to get the funding to start a new school to be designed and built there. We did send this survey, by the way, to the South Kitsap School District and asked that be distributed among the administrators and if to the school board. So I don't know if any of those people were able to get and respond to the survey, but I would like to see us maybe do a little bit more outreach to the school and see if they have any concerns about this project as well. We try to reach out to the school district from time to time, and I would just like to have a little more perspective from them as well. Design aesthetics, concerns about the size, although this is a fairly small development, and concerns about different housing types and varied income levels. So these are the most common concerns that were brought up in the free-form responses. And then,
Excuse me, could I ask, what kind of pushback did you get on design aesthetics?
Josie, do you want to speak to anything specific that you recall from that? I don't remember anything more than just, we need to see more specific.
Yeah, absolutely. I think ones that elaborated on the design aesthetic concern were mostly concerned with they didn't want it to be a strip mall or big box stores. They wanted it to fit in with the aesthetic that already exists in those neighborhoods. And so I think, again, as it's been talked about in this meeting, elaboration as the plan progresses, potentially showing what those look like would be really helpful for people.
Mhm.
And then, was there anything else about, you know, when I saw the survey results about different types of housing and different income levels being able to afford housing, I can empathize with somebody who lives there saying, you know, sure, yes, no, you know, my responses might vary in terms of how important this is to me. Anything else to note about the concerns of housing types and varied incomes, right? Because it's kind of like, it's different to say, we got our survey results back and there was kind of general disinterest in having affordable housing or having different types of housing for different income levels. Like people just didn't care. Some people said 1, some people said 5, it was all over. But having concerns about that beyond just we're worried about homelessness, was there anything else worthy of note?
I think there was a range. Yes, and I think some of that may have been the way that we phrased the question, because I think people might have taken it a couple of different ways. You know, are you concerned about affordable housing? Like, well, no, I'm not, because I'm not buying a house. I'm not concerned about it. That's not personally something of primary importance to me. I'm more concerned about trees, or I'm more concerned about, you know, what type of businesses we're going to have here. So that's not my primary concern. So that's maybe one set of respondents. Then there were some people who really maybe were thinking, you know, this is going to be maybe low income housing going in. And this is concerning to me because I am concerned about my property value. I'm concerned about crime. I'm concerned about safety. You know, what does this mean? You know, is that the kind of neighborhood that's being proposed here? I don't have enough information maybe to know. And that isn't something I want to see. So that's the concern I'm expressing. And I think maybe we did have 2 different types of interpretations of that question now that I've seen the responses to it. And Nick or Josie, feel free to jump in if you think there's some additional
I think
information.
to elaborate on that a little bit, I saw a couple where people were concerned with when you have more housing types that are not single family, more population, and what more population and resources brings to areas. And whatever somebody's opinion is on that could have led their response for that as well.
So kind of like if you have apartments versus single family homes, that means more traffic, that means more kids in schools.
Mhm.
That's a heavier drain on existing resources, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of concern about more people and the lack of existing infrastructure out there. For example, there was a lot of concerns about the school. There were a lot of concerns about traffic on Old Clifton and things like that. So.
Okay. And that's important because, again, that's what I meant about kind of trying to tease out what people's real underlying concerns were. Because if you just look at a survey and you just look at a graph, you know, sometimes you can just look at that and go, well, hey, you know, people hate affordable housing, and or people just, you know, are selfish and they don't want people to, you know, be able to have something, they've got theirs, and, you know, they're not concerned with other people. And that often that isn't what's really going on at all. And sometimes we just really need to reach out and figure out, you know, what's going on, and do people understand what's being proposed? Do they know about other improvements that we're making, that the city is making to improve existing infrastructure? Do they know about projects that are going on? Do they understand the type of development that's being proposed? When they say they're not really concerned about it, are they talking about themselves personally, or are they talking about their community at large? What is the real focus here? And I think that that was the one real area where I think that it would really behoove us to do some additional outreach, because I'm not sure that we've really gotten to the heart of the community's responses.
Where in the city in the last couple of years or moving forward, where is affordable housing being built?
I would say that there are 2 specific projects that have designated affordable housing because they've sought 12-year tax exemptions related to providing housing that's affordable to people of a certain income level. And those are, one of them is up above the movie theater on Mile Hill. It's an apartment complex that was built 2 years ago. The other one is, I believe it's the apartments along Sedgwick next to Fred Meyer that are under construction right now. They will have some affordable units. The rest of the units being built in the city are market rate, but because the median income in Kitsap County is so high, and it's skewed high because of Bainbridge Island and Paulsbo, where you have higher incomes, it may not be affordable to the median income of a Port Orchard resident, which is probably lower than the county as a whole. But according to the only metrics we have, it's affordable because it's at market rent. It's within a certain percentage of the median income. So you've got apartments going in on Sydney down by Albertsons. You have apartments going in. There's another project up Mile Hill. There's some in the Bethel Lundberg area, just south of Lund, that are proposed as well. So you've got apartments going in all over, but they're market rate apartments. The missing middle housing types that we've written code to allow, not many developers have taken us up on that. They've mainly been interested in building these apartments as rentals and single family homes. We haven't had any builders really come in and try to do a townhome project or some of the other missing middle housing types that we do allow. But I think the contractors who have been working in Port Orchard, that product type isn't necessarily in their wheelhouse, and it maybe either takes a different developer or it takes a little bit of education of our current developers to get them to convince them to try to do a project that's maybe outside of their comfort zone or not what they typically build.
So more or less than affordable housing doesn't necessarily mean a person can buy the home, but they can rent the home or the apartment.
Correct.
That's kind of sad.
Yeah, and the big reason in Washington is that the liability for building condominium units is so high for a developer. None of the developers are willing to take that risk except in the most high profit margin areas. So the only condos you're seeing built are the most expensive units, and you're not seeing affordable condos anymore because there's too much risk of getting sued down the road if there's some construction defect or something goes wrong. So I know that's been an issue that a lot of people have been advocating for a change in state law, but right now our Washington's legal framework is just not providing an incentive to build any condos at affordable prices. And you are seeing some condo conversions where they will take an apartment building and after 10 years, they may decide to convert it to a condo and then sell off the units because then they don't have that same liability, but you're not getting new condos at this time.
I think one thing that's sad about all the apartments being built is in the old days, people used to buy a house and they stayed there for a while and they put down roots and they were a part of the community. And it seems like when you build an apartment complex, you're just having people in and out and they're just staying for a little bit and then they're on to something else. So there's really none of that investing in the community like there was.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think, just look at the responses. We had, I think, 375 responses to the survey for the McCormick Village sub area. And I think we had like 19 for the Ruby Creek neighborhood where those apartments are and where those people are mostly transient, where they've taken a job here or they're stationed in the military here. They're not establishing roots, but the workforce in this country, I mean, we're so much more mobile now than we were 20 years ago. I don't know what the answer is there.
Yeah, and I guess the other side of that is, and I'm with you in that, but boy, do I care that there's that housing, that housing capacity for people who are in the military or who just need a place, to be. And I agree, it's not always ideal. And yeah, this is really interesting. Thanks, everyone.
So just to finish up really quickly, the community amenities or ideas that they wanted to see pretty much mirrors what they had said in the general response survey section further. They would love to see they have some big ideas. They'd love to see a recreation center, a community center, event center, an activity space for families and kids, like a pool, rock climbing, general entertainment space, small scale community market or a specialized grocery store, coffee shops and restaurants, schools. Not sure if they meant they'd like to see the school finally get built out there, if they're looking for something like a smaller, more specialized school. Protected and obvious bike lanes and protection of natural spaces. So again, we see their concerns repeated very obviously throughout the survey here in the free forms as well. And then we asked where people lived. Most people, about half of them live, or more than half of them live in the various subdivisions of McCormick Woods, which makes sense because most of the people that we managed to reach out to are within the various homeowners association groups of McCormick Woods, McCormick Meadows, the Ridge, Eldon Trails, other places associated with the various McCormick communities. Some people were elsewhere in Port Orchard, about 13-14%. And then we had just a few other people who apparently heard about this and wanted to respond to it. But we had a pretty high turnout from within McCormick Woods itself.
So
And then
Carrie,
we asked,
hey, Carrie,
ahead.
one quick comment. So McCormick Meadows and Ridge are actually not part of quote McCormick per se, that because they're north of the, so when McCormick Woods originally developed, that they, for whatever reason, were excluded from the HOA. So they were bifurcated earlier. So where we're keeping them all within on our project, I just want to bring that up. It's just a real subtle aspect, but it's so you don't quite have the coordination between Woods, Meadows, and Ridge. They're all kind of independents.
Okay, yeah, no, thank you for clarifying. I think that their HOAs and their mailing groups still got kind of the blast email and it got circulated out to them.
They
But I
definitely-
appreciate you pointing out that officially they're not all part of the same community and we don't all want to treat them like that.
Well, no, not just treating, just kind of just the subtlety. It's just that the great news, you guys got such a great response using different HOAs, which I just want to applaud you on because it was not as easy as just sending it out to McCormick Woods HOA. You guys actually had it, to your point earlier, and then to Annette's and Joe's point, it does show how much interest there is in the overall community, which is more so than just McCormick Woods.
Definitely. And then the last one was we asked people to give their age range. We actually had a pretty wide spread. The largest group were people from about 36 to 50 years old. So people who were kind of in the mid-range actually of having a family, raising their kids probably, which surprised me a little bit. I thought it might actually skew older, having a lot of retired people out there in McCormick Woods, but we actually got a pretty wide group. We do have some older people, 51 to 65, 65 plus, some younger people, 21 to 35, very few people under 20. But this is actually a pretty good group, a pretty wide representation of age ranges. So I was pleased about that. So that's our survey. And I'm happy to if anybody wants to see the full free form responses, I can forward that to you. If you want to look through those, just shoot me an email, let me know. And we're going to go ahead and forward the recording of the Planning Commission meeting. Well, not forward it. We're going to provide a link to it after this meeting. And a copy of the full survey results to everybody who responded to the survey and gave us their email. Because they asked to be on the mailing list for this project and to keep up with what's going on with it. And as we progress, let us know what other people are thinking. And as the design moves forward, to keep them involved with meetings and community forums and things like that. So we're going to go ahead and send that out just to keep everybody informed and try to answer questions from the community as they come up. But we do anticipate that there will be additional meetings where we will bring the community more directly into the process, that we will be having more community meetings at the Planning Commission, where we will invite the public directly to participate. And this will be before we have any hearings or anything formal done on the Severia plan itself. We do want to bring the public more directly into this process. So this was just an introduction. We wanted to kind of just let you walk through it with Eric, get the basics of the design and the concept and ask questions, let you see this initial survey, and then let you know that we'll be back with much more detail in the future, not too long from now. And if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Carrie. That was
Thank
a
you.
lot of good information.
I think I'll just add, boy, really nice job on the outreach here. And really interesting that you had more than 50% of your respondents 50 or under.
Mhm.
No 20 and under, but hey. But it's interesting that the majority of people who respond were 50 or under.
So I have just a quick question. Does Kitsap Transit, do they service that area? Like, do they drive through and?
Not currently, but they have asked us to put in a pad for a bus stop as part of the McCormick Village area. So we've talked to them about that. And I think it is their intent, once there's enough critical mass of people in the area, that they would like to provide service there.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Any comments? We don't. Okay, so I guess seeing nothing else, then we can adjourn the meeting and let Nick get back to the beach.
Well, thank you for everyone's time. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day.
Thank you for sharing all the
Thank you.
information. It was
Okay.
great.
Okay,
Great
thank
job.
you. Thank you,
Great
Josie.
job.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you,
Eric.
everybody.
Appreciate it.
All right,
Thank
good
you.
night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Hey,